Struggling. Struggling is a game that was designed to be not taken so seriously and to put the focus on fun rather than to be scrutinized. Struggling was presented to the world on August 27, 2020 by some very talented and absolute genius Canadians at Chasing Rats Games, published by Frontier Foundry. So let's have a more in-depth look at Struggling. My name is Elliot. Starting off, let's just have a quick look at the settings for Struggling. I'm pleased to say this is the very first game that actually cared enough about the player to assume that you might be using a functional keyboard layout. Of course, you still have the sinful QWERTY layout and all its bastard children, but you also have Dvorak, which is the one I use, and Colmac, the 2006 modern reimagining of what QWERTY should have been from the very beginning. Though, since they recommend playing with a controller and there's nowhere you can enter text in the game, this option is pretty much useless. You can't actually change the controller layout either, but it works well for what it is. You also get contrasted arms, which changes the arms from cream and dull orange to a sky blue and vibrant orange, which is what I prefer. Being the Portal guy, do I need to explain why I like contrasted arms? I'm also sure that's where they got the idea from. The game starts with a scene which tells of an ancient story about two heroes, Achilles and Hector. Achilles was wise and knowledgeable, and Hector was a defender of the weak. These two were destined to go on a pilgrimage as foretold by the elders. The scene ends with, quote, "Fortunately, none of them were alive to bear the disappointment when these so-called champions were born centuries later," unquote. To which the game proper begins. In Struggling, you play as the amalgam, abomination, Troy, the right hand of Achilles, the left hand of Hector. I'm not really going to go into the story of this game, not because I'm worried about spoilers, but because it's much more entertaining to play through it and see how it all unfolds, rather than have some guy over-explain what some Canadians thought up in probably less than a week. Gameplay is really simple, but also really fun. In single player, the controller is divided equally, so anything you do on the left buttons, you just mirror to the right. So square becomes left, or triangle becomes up, depending on which arm you want to use. It does take some time to get used to, especially if you don't typically play physics-based games. In multiplayer mode, you get the full controller for your specific arm. In single player, the left side controls the blue arm, and the right side controls the orange one. The objective of the game is to struggle to the right, sometimes up or down, sometimes through a tight cave, sometimes with hazards, but usually to the right. Throughout the game, you get two powers, one to detach your arms and the other to slow down time. Sometimes you need to use both of these powers to solve puzzles. Of course, having the slowdown power doesn't mean that you'll have the ability to do any puzzle, but will just help you get through them easier. Also, that power seems to also make your arms indestructible, at least in some cases. There are also several mini-games that you'll have to play, such as the crane segments, pretty early in the game, the pinball segments, a bit later, and the dating simulator, much later. A word of caution with the dating simulator: if you primarily use the D-pad and menus, you need to know that in this minigame, down is equivalent to X. So down makes a decision for Achilles. You'll want to flick the sticks to choose your options here, especially since you'll have to play this at least 4 times to date all potential heads of the abomination to get all 5 trophies. Being a physics-based game, you have to time your movements and plan out your means to get where you want to go. Luck and timing are major factors in how well you'll be able to play this game and games like this. Unfortunately, this also means that the few glitches in this game will likely hinder you. See, one glitch that can happen, seemingly at random, is that your hands can get stuck behind a wall or curl back in on themselves. Not a big deal because triangle or up will just regrow your arm, but it can throw off the momentum that you're going for. Also, regrowing your arm can also grow it into a loop or in on the other arm, which means you'll have to regrow it again. Not only that, but if this happens when you're playing single player, you'll likely have to think about which button you want to press. Up for blue, triangle for orange. Another annoying thing that can happen is that if either arm is stretched too far, it will disintegrate. If this happens, you can be thrown off what you were doing, and that may lead to a death. Fortunately, checkpoints are quite frequent, and there are no lives in this game. Only a death count to make you feel as worthless as possible when your first playthrough has over 500, and your final less than 100. Now, this game is hilarious. By far one of the funniest things to do is to listen to Troy's screaming, especially when it's dipped in acid. Achilles has a high-pitched voice that's perfect for screeching like a bird, whereas Hector has a deeper voice that makes moans sound delightfully painful. What this specific activity encapsulates is known in German as Schadenfreude, a pleasure derived from someone else's pain and suffering. Schadenfreude is different from sadism in that sadism is a personality trait, and a sadist inflicts pains on another for amusement, whereas Schadenfreude passively finds amusement from others' misfortunes or suffering, such as when someone doesn't get what that individual wants. One feature of struggling is that Troy will eventually get beaten and battered from having been thrown and rammed against walls, or by playing with the acid for around a minute. Unless you're overly soft, watching this fleshy meatball-looking thing suffering through its pilgrimage of pain is funny. This game isn't meant to be taken seriously at all. The first time I played this game, I was laughing so hard I had a hard time playing the actual game. I had to stop playing until I stopped laughing, but the game is so funny that I couldn't stop laughing for a while. I really can't recommend this game enough, and just talking about it makes me want to play it again. That said, there is one thing about this game that I think needs to be addressed: the trophies. See, there's one trophy that's essentially impossible to get unless you want to spend hours, maybe even days, trying to get it. Professional Struggle. To get this trophy, you have to complete the main campaign without dying even once. If that sounds ridiculous, according to PSN profiles, there's only been one player that's ever gotten this trophy, and by extension, the Platinum. Fortunately, I was playing this on PC, so I discovered that there's actually an easy exploit to get this. I wrote a guide for getting it on Steam, so if you're interested in getting it on PC, head over that way. It's not honest, but it gets the result you want. To get that trophy or achievement on PlayStation or Xbox, you'll have to resort to save exploiting. Even if you are the best, there's no way you'll ever get through the entire game without dying once. It's not possible. Still, with practice, patience, and plenty of tries, I'm sure you can do it through save exploiting. The art and stylization of struggling is nothing short of brilliant. Cartoony, not at all realistic, over the top, and fun. Struggling also has some great music to go along with a great looking and great playing game. The music was apparently all original in-house tracks, which is the best for projects like this. Not only that, but the lossless version is actually in WAV 24-bit. Now that's putting the player first. The humor is right at the sweet spot, where it's not disgusting, but also not quite senseless. Perhaps the humor is a bit basic, but it works. Achilles and Hector's have such delightful screams that land right on funny. I also find the spoken dialogue is brilliant. Dialogue can be toggled at will using right for Achilles and circle for Hector. Achilles will mumble, screech, or do something else, whereas Hector will moan, scream, or just say the word "ma." Overall, with what this game is and what's here, I can't fault it on really anything. Minor annoyances which take up maybe 1% at best of the total gameplay, I can only recommend this game. That said, Struggling has earned a great 9 out of 10. Struggling is definitely not for everyone, but is something that if you want a co-op game, you should seriously look into it. While playing Struggling with a friend, you'll likely learn every swear word imaginable and might just teach you that that particular friend is actually terrible at communication when the going gets tough. If that is the case, you two might just make it to the first checkpoint of the game before giving up. Who knows? It's awkward, it's weird, but it's fun. All that is to say, give this game a try. What are you doing right now? I'd be willing to bet you're eating food and watching this video. You're not doing anything important. Go play Struggling right now. Chasing Rats Games even has a free demo on Steam, and the minimum specifications would be mid-range on a PC from 10 years ago. Play Struggling right now. Dark Lord Elliot, we're done here, and thanks for watching.